Ladies and gentlemen, today is July 9th, 2015, and this is the KNKL Show, episode 245, where we normally, today's Thursday, today we normally meditate under the bonsai tree, but not today, we're cutting that tree down, making some paper out of it, and we're continuing on with our good old pool party Lulu. That was supposed to be like the paper we're drawing, get it? I was reaching, I tried, okay. Anyway, we're continuing with Lulu. This is where we left off, and now we are currently standing here. Whoa, there's a lot of stuff that we did, and you're probably wondering how I got there, but fear not, because I have a time lapse that will take us on a magical journey over the last couple hours. I worked on this today, and we'll get to that in just a moment. But before we get into that, we need to take a stroll down the lovely lane, because you guys are awesome, and continuing. It's only been 2 days, but you guys are continuing to put up awesome artwork. So if you would like to go check this out for yourself, that tiny URL at the bottom will take you there. By the way, I absolutely love this Lulu. By the way, I love that you actually drew it with my design. That made me so happy. Who actually did this? This was done by Martina. Thank you, Martina, for doing this awesome rendition of Lulu. But yes, if you want to go check this out for yourself, the link is down there. Go like the page, submit your artwork, and get featured on the show and get cookies. All right. All that out of the way, let's go ahead and get into the time lapse. Close down iTunes. We don't need that up anymore. All right, so let's go ahead and get into the time lapse. We are starting back here. Back here is where we left off. And if you're curious as to how we even got to here, then you probably did not see Tuesday's episode. You should go back and watch episode 244. That will clue you in on what's going on right now. But we have completed the line work. We've laid down our masks. I talked to you guys all about setup yesterday. Now we're moving into the fun part, which is choosing colors. Choosing colors, and we're having a great time. We're working with dark colors first, working with our dark shadow colors. And then we are laying on top of that our local colors, which is basically a fancy way of saying we're painting dark first. Paint dark first, and then we add in this stuff. Add in the lights. A lot of people, a lot of people. I used to do it this way. I used to paint the lights first, right? Because that's easy. It's like, okay, what color is this inner tube? Purple. Okay, let's lay down purple. And then you're like, oh, okay, I guess I gotta add some shadows to this or something to make it look real, right? And then you have to kind of reverse engineer, think backwards as to what color the shadow is going to be, and then the reflected light and all that stuff. Really, what I am teaching you guys to do now is to work from the darkest colors up to basically the highest intensity of light. So basically, you're going to be painting your shadows like in here. Do your reflected lights first, because in order of intensity, the reflected light is next up. Then you're going to go towards your sunlight, right? And another thing that you're noticing is also the major contrast between the lights and the shadows. And we learned yesterday that what this does is it gives you the impression that you are looking at a very bright scene. And the reason why it does that is because your eyeballs shrink, or not your eyeballs, but your pupils shrink and let in less light. So basically letting in less light means that your shadows will become darker because, there's not as much light being absorbed from those shadowy areas. So the effect that we get is a very, very stark contrast between lights and shadows. And that's what we're going to be focusing on today. Well, actually, not so much that, but we already basically did all that stuff. I talked to you guys a little bit about my thought process going into my color choices in last week's episode, or rather on Tuesday's episode. So you can go check that out. Today what we're going to be doing is line coloring. Yay! Oh, line color. Magical line coloring. And I'm going to show you guys how, basically, we're taking it to this point right now. And you might say, oh, hey, this looks really nice. I like the choices of colors here. It's very lively. It feels very fun, right? But line coloring is going to take it even to the next level. It's going to go to the next level. It's going to really start, we're going to start blending the lines into our piece. And this is going to be setting it up so that way we can begin doing a little bit of overpainting. We can start getting rid of some of the lines that were in there. And just making our picture look friggin' awesome. Making it look professional, as the Japanese say. So anyway, so that's what we're doing today. And I really like to do this stuff. This is the way I teach you guys to do it. Line coloring, just because it's so easy to start your lines. Basically, you want to think of it as an animation cell. And I'll show you guys this in the actual layers. In fact, I'll just show you it right now. Let's go ahead and jump on over into it. There's not really much more that I do with that thing, so let's go ahead and just jump on over. Okay, so again, this is the difference that we're looking at. This is where we were at on Tuesday, and then boom, we moved it to here. Okay, so look at how I pushed even more like the contrast between the shadows and the lights, specifically in the skin, like especially up on this octopus head thing. I don't know what you'd call that. I can't tell if it's like an inflatable thing that you just stuck on her head or what it is, but anyway, you can see all the like very, very bright lights and very starkly contrasting dark shadows. But let's go ahead and get into the actual setup, and then we're going to do line coloring. I'm going to show you guys how awesome this is going to look. You guys are going to have your minds blown today. All right. And I hope that you guys are all doing good. Looks like the chat is streaming up just nicely. We're not dropping any frames, so we are in good standing with Twitch right now. So let's talk about, I'm going to go ahead and close this down. Let's talk about lines and how I like to set up my drawing. Okay, so right here, this group 1, right down here, this is our color. And I have not labeled it because I'm awesome and I just memorize everything. So I'm going to go ahead and just name that color. Let's take away the color, right? And what are we left with? Ah, interesting. We have all of these lines that we've created. All of these lines. Basically, I've set them up in a way so that way there's like a foreground. There's a background, which is like the hair and like tentacles. It's going to make it easier come the time when we're going to start coloring these things or coloring the lines. And you'll notice that my values are created by, and I always stress this, right? When I'm creating values, like say I'm going to draw a face right here, right? A happy face. And then I want to add some shading to it, right? I'm not painting gray. I'm not painting gray into it, but rather what I'm doing is I'm always sticking with this one color, sticking with this color right over here. And then I am putting in my values by pressing lightly, right? And the reason why I'm doing this is because when it comes time to place color behind it, so let's say this, let's paint this like pink or whatever. When you place color behind it, it automatically mixes with whatever colors are in front of it. I call this the animation cell technique, and that's what we're going to be working with today. So let's go ahead and do that. But you'll notice, hey, look at this. There's an interesting space right here that's been colored. Interesting. You might be asking me how I go about doing that. Well, the answer lies right here in layer 2. See, if I take this away, someone is calling me. I'll get that later. The color right here can be, basically you can color your lines whatever you'd like them to be colored like this. So layer 2 is basically this right here. It's just basically color that lays over top of this layer. And we're gonna clip it back by holding Alt between these two layers and clicking right between them. Now what this does is it basically like sucks that color back onto just the line art. And this allows you to go through and say, okay, well, I'm gonna start coloring the lines all kinds of different colors now. Say I wanted to have like blue eyes. So I can make the lines of the eyes now blue, right? And if I don't like it, if I want to go back to where it was, like I always like to start with like a dark color on my lines, and then I can erase, I can erase stuff away if say I wanted the irises to be darker. And we're going to be going into that. That's just the basic principle of what we're going to be getting into. So we got lines there. Now the color lays behind it, okay? Now that we've learned how all that stuff works, that's why you have these transitions. It looks like, oh, but here's the cool part. It looks like I'm painting these in. It looks like I'm painting in this texture, right? But that's actually just the line work. If I take away the lines, look at what we got. Look at this. It's actually just, see, it's just colors. And a lot of it is very, very simple colors, very, very flat colors. I allow my lines to do a lot of the valuing for me, or doing a lot of the shifts and adding contrast for me. And now with that completely explained, let's go ahead and get into line coloring. Let's do it. Okay, so we're just going to be working with that good old layer right here. See how that lightens up her little bathing suit right there? We're going to be doing the same thing with everything else. And our basic principle is whatever the color of the line is, or whatever color the line surrounds, we're going to make, basically it's just a darker version of it. Okay, so we got orange here, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to go red, and then we're going to darken it down. We're going to go like right there. We're going to go ahead and paint that in. Now watch what happens here. Let's zoom in on this. Watch what happens here. This is going to immediately start softening your edges and making it look more lively and more, it just makes it look a lot better. And it's softening the edges. So it's giving you a bit more of like, it's actually looking more like a subsurface scattering type of thing. And it just makes things look more real, right? Because everybody knows how to paint or draw with black lines, right? But a big thing that's going to make your artwork look a lot better or more professional is to actually have colors in your lines, right? Colors in your lines. And then as you go forward, you guys can actually go through and overpaint those and actually remove them completely. And you can kind of get started on this a little bit by saying, okay, let's say I don't want this. I know that when I go through and paint this, I don't want this color to be there. I'm going to want it to be a little bit lighter. So what I'm going to do is I drop this color right here. I drop this orange. And then I'm going to go ahead and paint that orange right into here. See how that automatically starts softening that line to the point where it almost doesn't exist, right? Softens it, gets it ready for that good old overpainting stage. And we like that. We like that a lot. All right, so that's the basic principle. We're just going from that to that, that to that. So we're going to do that throughout the entire piece now, okay? Or just in some areas, like the most important areas. And then I'll take a couple questions, and then we're going to end today's show. A little bit of a shorter daily today. Didn't want to make it like too crazy. Focus a little bit more on questions. So yeah, I hope you guys are digging this. Okay, so check it out. So I am going to say, okay, so this is blue. So what are we going to do? I always like to hue shift as well. Always hue shift your values. So I'm going to go more towards this blue. I'm going to darken it down to right about there, okay? And you can have really, really broad strokes. I found that broad strokes works really well with this. I went really small just for that floaty, just to kind of prove a point. But really what you want to do is get in the habit of kind of just do some really, really broad strokes, because you can get away with quite a bit on this. You know, just kind of lay down some broad strokes, paint those lines, whatever you'd like them to be. And then because this is on a clipping mask, remember, see that little arrow? This is on a clipping mask. Worst case scenario, say you take an orange, take like this orange, and you paint it through like that, and you're like, oh no, what am I going to do? All you got to do is go back in and see, you can erase it back to the way it was. Awesome, huh? Or you can just click back in your history. But you know what I mean. All right. So I do want to have a little bit of darkness right in here with the eyeball. Yeah, that looks good. And the tongue, I want that to be a completely different color. So let's go ahead and have that color be like right there. See how it's starting to make the picture feel a lot more lively than just the black? See how the black, I mean, this isn't technically black, it's a very dark blue. But rather than it being monochromatic, when you start adding color to it, it feels a lot more lively and it looks really, really cool. So that's what I'm trying to get you guys to do at home. All right, so let's go ahead and do the hair now. Let's do the hair. Good old hair. Let's go and paint it specifically in the areas where the light is hitting it. So let's do like a little bit there, a little bit there on the ear, a little there, there, and there. Cool. I like it. I like it a lot. Cool. Oh, let's do the eyes. The eyes is going to be a very important part. Now, sometimes you might run into like some what we call muddy colors. I have a feeling that we're probably going to run into it with the eye here. But let's see what we can do with it, okay? Because we got quite a bit of value that I added into this eye, and getting rid of that is probably going to be kind of a pain in the butt, or just painting the color, expecting it to do the job for us, might not be enough, but let's see what happens. Let's kind of lay that in. Oh, actually, no, never mind, that does look pretty good. That does look quite good. Yeah, see how simple that is? It's so easy. So easy. And then you can go in and I'll add in even a little bit more here, because the sun is coming from the top right, very slight top right. So the brightest part of our eyes, because we know how eyes work, is going to be the bottom left side. And I've taught you guys that before. That's how eyes work. Wherever the light is coming from, the light is going to show up most prominently on the opposite side. All right. And we can fix the rest of this stuff up all later once we go into the overpainting stage. But I want to stress to you guys, I am not painting over anything. I'm literally just painting my lines. Look, you can see here. If I take away the colors, see how my lines are the only thing that's getting painted. And it's basically softening the entire piece. And it's making it look really cool. And it's so much easier. I almost feel like I'm cheating every time I do it, but I kind of stopped caring a long time ago. But yeah, it just makes everything look so much nicer. And it's really fun. So I really want you guys to be doing this. Okay, so I'm going to do a little bit on the skin, because skin is also another very important part that I want to talk to you guys about. Specifically, what's happening right here. So I go on and on and on about subsurface scattering. I'm sure you've heard that term thrown around a lot. Some of you know what it means. A lot of artists throw it around. They don't know what it means, but I think I know what it means. And basically that means that whenever you're working with skin, you'll have a shadow, right? And then you'll have a light. But then there's something in between, right between those two transitions. And that is basically a saturated version of whatever color that character's blood is, basically. And the reason why that is happening is because that light is entering the skin, bouncing around in all the little blood vessels, and then refracting back out. So that's why you get this really cool transition from it's basically, let's take a look at these colors here. It's a desaturated pink in this case, and then we're going to go to a saturated. See how it goes more to the right? That means it's saturating, and it is redder. It is red and more saturated. And then you're going to go towards your purple, and it's going to kind of cool off again. See how we're right over here, and in the shadow, we go back down like this. So you'll see there's almost like this U shape happening. There's a U shape happening. It goes from desaturated to saturated, back to desaturated. And that's a general principle that I'm always thinking about. It doesn't always just happen in skin. It happens in a lot of materials in general. But very specifically, you want to focus on it in skin when you have very bright scenes like this, like say sunlight and then a very a stark cast shadow. You're going to see a little bit of that subsurface in there. So don't forget it. All right, now let's go ahead and paint the skin, because line coloring is very, very handy when it comes to painting skin. Because if there's anything that you want to have softer, it is definitely the skin. So we're going to go ahead and choose this dark purple, because Lulu does have purple skin. For our lines involving skin will now get painted dark purple. Start with that. And that's looking great. That's looking great already. See, look at this. Check this out. Just look at the small differences that this makes. And yet, see how that looks much more lively? See, there it looks kind of like you have like this warm color with a blue outline. It looks kind of dead, kind of just, it looks like a comic book, right? But as soon as you add that color to it, it's like, whoa, it's like there's something glowing from inside of it. It feels much more alive. And that's what we like. That's what we like. Make that skin glow, make it look radiant. Make it look good. Make it look good. Okay, I'm also going to paint this orange part. Those orange little wristband thingies, whatever those are. I'm actually going to darken them down a little bit. I'm going to take questions in just a moment, so prepare them. Ladies and gentlemen, prepare your questions. Because it's time for the question catapults. All right, ladies and gentlemen, please cast your questions over the castle walls, and I'll answer them. And in the meantime, we're going to go ahead and continue with this good old Lulu. So let's go ahead and review what we've learned thus far today. We've learned about line coloring. We've learned about setting up our pieces properly so that way we can have color behind, right? We lay down our colors behind. And we set up our lines so that way they can be colored and you can clearly see the colors that are happening in here. And if you have any questions, don't worry, because this PSD is going to be uploaded on Patreon right after this. And you can get in here, you can zoom in and check it all out for yourself. You can see exactly how I do it. And you can have yourselves a merry little good old time. All right, Question coming in from his brain. Would you rather do artwork for more money or do artwork that you would like to do but not really good paid? I'm guessing that means working for passion or working for money. And that is a time-old question, his brain. It's just something that you got to figure out for yourself. It's like, well, what I really think that there is a balance. And there are certain things that just, like, you can't get paid enough. Like, you can't get paid enough to be miserable. Like, that's my philosophy. There's certain times in my life where I've had to do jobs where I'm just not really into it. But then there's also a good time to understand that, hey, like, when you're getting started in an industry that you want to be in, you got to understand there's a little bit of risk. And, you know, when you're the rookie getting started, you got to be kind of the guy that's kind of be the yes man. You're going to be the yes man in the beginning. Do stuff that you don't really like all the time, but then occasionally get the jobs that you do. And slowly over time, you'll gain confidence. You'll gain confidence with your craft. You'll get better at what you do. You will just naturally sort of gain respect from others and from yourself. And then at that point, options start to open up to you and you can begin to start to do more what you really like. But yeah, it's a tough thing. It's a very vague question. It's more something that you got to answer for yourself. But in my case, I would rather do something that I really like, because trust me, I was selling jeans at the mall, and it was like I hated what I was doing, and I was getting paid crappy. Like, that's the worst thing possible. So, I mean, I just asked myself, why can't I have both? Why can't I just do something that I really like and get paid well? So that's what I decided I was gonna do, and I got it. So, moving on. Minions attack, BB Shadowcat. I like it. Marcy is asking about Paint Tool site. I have not personally used it, so I don't have any opinion on that. Sorry. Grimbark, how do you go about positioning the ears on the head? I usually find the most trouble getting the perspective right on 3/4 views. Are you talking about Lulu's ears, or are you talking about human ears? Lulu's ears were easy. I'm guessing you're talking about human ears. Okay, well, let me show you really quickly. Sir Grimbark, mini tutorial in the corner here. And this will also be on the PSD. Okay, mini tutorial. Here we go. So the way that I like to do a 3/4 head view, especially if it's like pointing down, right? I've taught you guys about the circle technique, add the chin shape, and then you do one of these, right? So basically, no matter where your eyeballs are positioned, right? This is your eyes right there. The way that I position the ears is, see how this line curves around? You want to think of it as sort of like an ellipse that goes through the head, right? So no matter how I position the head, even if it's like really exaggerated angle like this, and see, like, now the ellipse is like this and the eyes are here. Man, those are like really wonky eyes. But you get what I'm saying. Basically, the edge of the ear, or the top of the ear, is going to be right on that line. So you draw that line back, that's where your ear is going to go. And then the bottom of the ear, coincidentally, lines up at the bottom of the nose. So that's a good thing that you can keep in mind. So let's draw on the nose there, draw that line back. Keep in mind the perspective. That is not a smiley face. That is a guideline. And that's where your ear goes. All right, so that's my basic understanding of it. That's my basic side tutorial for you, Grimbark. Next question. Iconics is asking, do you clean outline in some of your artwork, Lulu, without outlines? I don't understand exactly what you're talking about. I do clean up my actual lines, but I do actually clean up the very silhouette. You'll notice how the insides, if you look at the insides of all the lines, there's some that are still a little bit kind of texturized, a little bit kind of messy, but on the outsides it's very, very clean. And this is kind of something that I kind of picked up on as I was working with the Splash team back at Riot. I noticed that in order for your work to look very kind of pristine and finished, all you really had to worry about was your edges. It didn't really matter what was happening inside of those edges, but like the edges of your character, the edges of like materials or like overlapping things. In general, those things can all be cleaned up too, but I noticed that the most important one was the outside edge. If you clean up that outside edge, it makes it look really good. Sorry if I didn't completely understand your question, Iconics. Next one, Death Draw. Hey, Keenan, after you're done with the tutorial, can I show you a quick video? You can post it on the Facebook. You're always welcome to post stuff on the Facebook, and I will check it out. Oh, the minute I saw it, I felt like sharing it with you. Thank you, Deathdraw. Yeah, post it on the Facebook. I'll check it out. Alrighty. And we are going to go ahead and move on to, let's go ahead and reduce this in opacity. And let's do a couple more things here, right? Because you guys showed up to see this get done. I'm going to do a little bit more just to kind of drive the point home. Let's do the shell here. The shell, I think, is basically just going to be the same color as this swimsuit here. So I'm going to take that good old color. And this is going to really drive it home. Watch the difference between this and this. See how that immediately softens it, makes it look super clean. And another thing that I really like to do is say I want these lines in here to be even less noticeable. What I'll do is I'll actually just hold Alt, I'll click that pink color right there, and then I'll paint the lines that color. See, now even those lines become even less apparent. They become even softer. So you can kind of just play around. You can play it. All your lines don't have to be just like one color. You can, basically, they're yours to tell what to do. You are in command of your lines. So you get to tell them what to do. You make the rules. You make the rules, right? Speaking of making the rules, I've noticed that coloring lines looks really good on golds. Like any sort of gold material, it'll really, really show up a lot in your artwork. So like the difference between this and this, for example. See how that just gives so much more life to it. Looks so much nicer. I'm gonna go ahead and grab that. Look, I'm literally just eyedropping that, dropping that in, softening those edges, and that makes the overpainting stage so much easier, so much easier. Oh yeah, and speaking of overpainting, let's do a quick tutorial on that, and then we'll end today's show. Because I'm going on vacation. For those of you who don't know, the next week I'm going to be taking a cruise out to Mexico, and I'm going to be having a great, grand old time. So the next week we will not be having a show. Normally I like to pre-record them, but this one I'm actually going to take like a real vacation. Not going to focus on work at all. Just going to relax. So I can leave you guys with this for sure. Okay, so let's go ahead and do some overpainting. So overpainting is basically we're creating a new layer over top of everything. This is now where basically your word is law and you get to lay down any color that you want. But because we're awesome and we've already colored our lines, a lot of the colors that we need are already here. Now, what I'm thinking about when I start doing overpainting is I'm taking these lines and I'm saying, okay, so I want to create a line. Right here, right? But in order to do that, I need an area of contrast. I need a contrast here and here. So let's say, okay, well, what I can do is I can blend this line. See how there was that line there before? Well, I can blend that line down to make a shadow. I can say, okay, well, the metal is rendering, so it's conceivable that there would be a shadow there. And then let's let this contrast create the line for us. Same thing happening up here. I want there to be a line of contrast between the rod and the gold piece. So I can say, okay, well, let's make this piece a little bit darker in here. And let's have the contrast be between these two colors. And that's how you begin losing your lines. See how I'm basically thinning out those lines from there to there? There's still contrast there. Those lines still exist in your mind, but they're not drawn anymore. It's just you're creating lines with contrast. And that's basically the difference between cartoons and painting, or like realistic painting and rendering. That's all you got to do. You're just thinking in terms of contrast. And when I first had that told to me, I think my brain exploded all the way to the moon and back. I was blown away. I was like, how do you paint stuff without lines? And it just made so much sense. I just can't believe I didn't think of it before. It's like, oh, it's just contrast. It's just contrast. Brilliant. Brilliant. So that's my good old tutorial for you guys. I hope that helps you out. And yeah. And with that, we're going to go ahead and end today's show. So basically what I'm going to be doing once I get back from my vacation is doing that process. I'll be doing that process on the rest of the piece and just taking those principles into account And I will be uploading this PSD on Patreon. And hey, speaking of Patreon, before we take off, I need to say thank you to my awesome sponsors, Defenders of the KNKL Kingdom, David Cariello, and Laura Bashir. These people are awesome. If you want to check out their artwork, I like to feature my sponsors' artwork, not only in the YouTube comments below if you're watching on YouTube, but on my DeviantArt. So if you go there, you can check out my sponsors, you can check out their art. And these people are awesome. If you would like to sponsor the show, where the heck is the... Oh, great. Okay, here we go. If you would like to sponsor the show, head on over to the good old KNKL Patreon. I'll be uploading today's PSD, as well as a bunch of other cool stuff. You can sponsor the show. I'll make you a cool little animated avatar like you just saw, and get all kinds of cool goodies. If you're watching on YouTube, that link down the bottom right will take you right there. And yeah, I think that was about it. And in case you didn't hear me for the 5th time, that this PSD will be on there. So, with all that out of the way, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to go ahead and end today's show. Thank you guys so much for joining me live on Twitch. People on YouTube, thumbs up if you like it, thumbs down if you don't. My name is Ken Lafferty. I'll see you guys in a week. Remember, I'm going on vacation. I'll see you guys in a week. So, that should be like the 20th, 21st, around then. So, you guys take care of yourselves. You guys have an awesome time without me. I know I probably overloaded your brains with so much stuff in these last 2 lessons. You guys need a little bit of a break. I understand. Let your brains rest. But I'll return to you soon. You guys take care, and I'll see you guys next time. See ya.